안녕하세요 여러분, 일산센터 박보성입니다. 영국문화원은 재학생 학부모님들께 교육적이며 흥미 가득한 주제로 정기 웨비나 브리티시 터크를 진행하고 있습니다. 오늘은 그 세 번째 세션인데요. 지난 세션에서는 영국의 로열 패밀리에 대해 이야기를 나누어 보았습니다. 이어서 오늘은 영국을 구성하는 4개국 중에 하나인 스코틀랜드에 대해 이야기를 나눠보자 합니다. 이번 세션은 일산센터 코디네이터 앤드류 선생님께서 진행해 주실 예정인데요. 스코틀랜드와 관련한 역사, 문화, 장소 등 다양한 내용들을 전달해 주실 예정이라고 하니 굉장히 기대가 됩니다. 세션이 진행되는 동안 궁금하신 점은 채팅창을 통해 남겨주세요. 마지막 질의응답 시간을 통해 몇 개의 질문을 선정하여 이야기 나누어 보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그럼 오늘 세션을 진행할 앤드류 선생님 모셔볼까요? Are you ready, Andrew?
I'm ready. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Andrew. I am the Young Learner Coordinator at the Ilsan Centre, and I'm also from Scotland. And today I'm going to take you on a journey to explore Scotland, to explore its castles, its culture, and its creatures. So before we start, can you tell me in the chat, do you know anything about Scotland? Have you heard of Scotland before, perhaps? Okay. So first of all, let's think about where is Scotland. If you came to our previous British talk before with James' teacher, perhaps you know already. So let's look at the map. If you can find Korea, first of all, somewhere over here, maybe you can find Europe. Europe's somewhere here in the middle. So Scotland is part of the British Isles. And Scotland is in the northern part of the British Isles, north of England. And you can see it here on the map. Scotland's known for its stunning landscapes, its rich history, its distinct cultural heritage, and we're going to explore all of that together today. Scotland is over 8,000 kilometres from Korea. It takes about 14 hours to get there on a plane, but today we don't need to worry about that. With YouTube, we're going to go on this special plane together. And through the magic of internet, we can arrive in Scotland. So, welcome to Scotland. In Scotland just now, it's just after 11 o'clock in the morning. And if you look at this sign, you will see there are two languages. First one says, welcome to Scotland, in English. And the second one says, Fáilte go halba. But what is that language? Can you guess? So we have English, and the other language here is Gaelic. Gaelic's a language that's been spoken in Scotland for over 1,000 years. You'll see it on road signs like this one, and you'll also heard it spoken in some parts of the country as well. Actually, Scotland has three main languages. We have English, we have Gaelic, and we also have Scots. Each language is unique, it has a unique history, and they're used in different parts of the country as well. English is the most widely spoken. It's the most widely spoken language in Scotland today. We use it in schools, we use it for business, we use it in everyday conversation. The way that we speak, however, might be a little bit different. Scottish people have different accents that we use, and that can vary from city to city, from place to place. You might hear Scottish people using some unique phrases, some unique words as well. And we'll look at some of those later. Our next language is Gaelic. Gaelic is a Celtic language that's been spoken in Scotland for over 1,000 years. It was once the main language of the Highlands and Islands, but only a small percentage of the population speak Gaelic now. And you can see on the map where you have the darker green colours, that's where people speak Gaelic, or more people speak Gaelic anyway. You'll still hear it being used in those more rural communities, especially up here in the islands. So Gaelic's an important part of Scotland's cultural heritage, and there's lots of efforts to keep the language alive. You'll see it, for example, in road signs the further north that you go. You'll see it on train station signs. You have the English and the Gaelic. The police also, for example, have their English and Gaelic on their cars. The bank. And also there are some TV stations that are purely in Gaelic, like BBC Alba. Let's have a look at this. So, the word whiskey comes from a Gaelic word, ushkabeha, which literally translates as the water of life, and it's probably one of Scotland's most well-known exports. This here is how we say cheers in Scotland. To say cheers, we say slange or slangeva. Okay. We have another language, which is Scots. Scots is a Germanic language that is quite related to English, but it's got its own distinct vocabulary, its own distinct grammar, its own distinct pronunciation as well. And it's evolved from the same roots as English, but developed separately over hundreds of years. Scots is still spoken in many parts of Scotland, especially in more rural areas and also in the northeast of the country as well. And you can see on the map the darker blue colours are where more people speak it. So you have some examples here of Scots words, which may or may not look familiar. We also have our national bard, national poet, Rabbie Burns, who's very famous for having written lots of his work in Scots. And this text here is from a very famous song called Auld Lang Syne that we sing at the end of the year. So here we have Hogmanay. Hogmanay is the Scots word for the last day of the year. So we call it New Year's Eve, 31st of December, but in Scotland, Hogmanay is a massive celebration. We have lots of street parties, and we also sing the song that we just saw on the screen before. And here you can see one of our big cities having a celebration on the 31st of December. So this is the flag of Scotland, and if you came to our previous British talk, you might recognise it. This is a saltire. It's the flag of Scotland, and it's one of the oldest flags in the world. It became the official national flag in 1385, so it's really, really old. You'll see here the Union Jack, which is the flag of the UK, and if you come to British Council, you've probably seen that in the foyer or in the classrooms. And you can see there how the Union Jack was created. And you can see at the very top left, you can see the St Andrew's Cross, the saltire, joined together with St George's Cross of England and Wales. And that became the flag of the King's Colours and the flag of the UK in 1707. Okay. Let's look at some quick facts about Scotland. So how many people live in Scotland? Let's see. Is it 1 in 500,000? Is it 2, 5.5 million? Or is it number 3, 50 million? Can you guess? I'll give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. It is number 2. So the population of Scotland is around about 5.5 million. In Scotland, there are nearly 7 million sheep, so there are more sheep than there are people in Scotland. And where do they live? Let's have a little look at the map. So our biggest city in the west is Glasgow. And then we have Edinburgh. We have Aberdeen. We have Dundee. And here in the north, we have Inverness. So these are 5 of the main big cities, but we also, of course, have many, many towns and many villages all over the country. You can also see there are lots and lots of islands as well. In Scotland, there are over 790 islands, but only 94 of these are inhabited. Lots of people live in more rural places, lots of rural communities, and it takes a long time to get around. People take a ferry to get from A to B, but sometimes they need to fly, and you can see this plane here. It's on the island of Barra, and it's at a runway that's on the sand. It's the only airport in the world that has a tidal runway. So it's very impressive when you come in to land there. You can only fly at certain times of the day. Unlike Korea, Scotland doesn't have that many tall buildings. And this building here is the tallest building in Scotland. It's at the Glasgow Science Centre. And I wonder if you can guess how tall it might be. It's actually 127 metres tall. Namsan Tower in Seoul is much taller than that. Namsan, I think, is 236 metres. So even the tallest building in Scotland is not as tall as Namsan Tower. Of course, we've got lots and lots of mountains in Scotland, lots of hills too. Ben Nevis is the highest point in the country. It's the highest point in Scotland, and also it's the highest point in the UK. And a question for you. Ben Nevis is higher than Halasan. True or false? What do you think? It's false. So Ben Nevis is just over, it's 1,345 metres tall. Halasan is closer to 2 kilometres. It's quite a big difference. Another question for you. Glasgow is the capital of Scotland. True or false? This one's also false. This city here, this is Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland. So although Glasgow is bigger, Edinburgh is the capital city of Scotland. A very beautiful city with lots of beautiful architecture, a medieval old town, and an elegant new town. Edinburgh's been the capital of Scotland since 1452, so it's another really old city. Many, many old things in Scotland. This building here is also in Edinburgh, and I wonder if you can guess what it is. Maybe it looks like a museum or a bus station, perhaps. Actually, this is the Scottish Parliament. There was an original Parliament in Scotland that existed until 1707, the joining of the Union. And this Parliament was established in 1998. It had its first meeting in 1999. And this building that you see on the screen just now was opened in 2004, so it's 20 years old. Scotland is not independent, but it does have devolved powers. It has powers to make decisions, for example, health, education, the environment, those sorts of things. And so the Scottish Parliament you will find in Scotland's capital. Scotland, or Edinburgh rather, is very famous for its castle. and you can see it here in this picture. Edinburgh Castle is built on top of something, but I wonder if you can guess what. Is it a mountain? Is it a volcano? Or is it a car park? Can you guess? Yeah. Edinburgh Castle is actually built on top of volcanic rock, an extinct volcanic plug called Castle Rock. It's been a royal residence for a long time, for almost 1,000 years. It's also one of the most popular tourist attractions in Edinburgh, and you get a wonderful view from the top. Speaking of castles, there are over 2,000 castles in Scotland. Let's take a look at some of them. So you can see there are some very big and some very beautiful castles. Some are slightly smaller. Some are falling apart. But they were built hundreds of years ago to protect people from enemies. Many castles have links to literature. So there are two castles here. On the left you have Cawdor, and on the right you have Glamis Castle. And both of these are linked to Shakespeare, to Shakespeare's Scottish play, which you might know as Macbeth. Both of these place names are mentioned in Shakespeare's works. There's another castle in something a little bit more modern. Perhaps you recognise this castle. So this is Hogwarts, and it's the castle from the Harry Potter movies. I'm a muggle, so I don't know for sure, but rumour has it that Hogwarts is set in the Scottish Highlands. And you might recognise this bridge, this railway bridge as well. This is the Glenfinnan Viaduct, and you'll find that in the north of Scotland, also in Scotland's Highlands. And this is the train that the pupils at Hogwarts take. So while Hogwarts may not be real, you can certainly visit this bridge and take a ride on this impressive train. Okay. This is Eilean Castle. It's one of the most photographed castles in Scotland. And like many castles, this one belonged to a clan. Clans are like large families that have a common ancestor. So maybe they have a similar great-great-great-grandfather. Each clan had its own castle, and it also had its own land. And you can see on the map here the various different colours which mark the different clans, the different family names. So some examples that we have here: Clan Campbell, Clan Douglas, Clan MacLeod, Clan MacDonald. Mickermac means son of, and you might recognise that name from a rather famous fast food company. Each clan also has its own tartan. Tartan's a special cloth made of crisscross pattern, so horizontal rather, and vertical, in different colours. And tartan is very important for each clan. Each has their own different colours, and you can see some of those on the screen just now. Another question for you. Korea's traditional outfit is the hanbok. Scotland has a traditional outfit. True or false? What do you think? It's true. Let's have a look. So this is the kilt. The kilt's part of Scotland's national dress, and it's made from tartan fabric. It looks a little bit like a skirt, but it's a kilt. We wear kilts at weddings, at special ceremonies, when we graduate from university, and we're very proud to wear it. we also wear kilts when we play bagpipes. Bagpipes are a traditional Scottish instrument and they make a very unique sound. They can be quite loud and quite disruptive. They're played at parades, they're played at football games as well. And like I say, they're loud, but they're a big part of Scottish culture. You'll hear them played at many, many places. You can see, for example, this marching band proudly wearing their kilts and playing bagpipes as well. This is a special dance. It's called a ceilidh. These take place all over Scotland year round. In December, in schools, instead of doing PE, instead of doing sports at school, we learn how to do traditional dances so that we can dance later. In Scotland, we also celebrate St Andrew's Day. St Andrew's Day takes place on the 30th of November every year. It's perhaps not quite as big as the Irish equivalent, St Patrick's Day, but still it's an important part of our culture. And there are many events that take place on the 30th of November. There's also a town called St Andrews. St Andrews is the home of golf, and the old course here is considered to be one of the oldest golf courses in the world. It's also home to one of the oldest universities in the English-speaking world after Oxford and Cambridge, so it's another town that has a lot of history. We're going to look at some Scottish words next. The first one is I. The second one is we. The third is Loch. So not Loch, it's more in the throat, so Loch. The fourth one is Drich. Again, it has a sound, Drich. And the fifth one is tatty. So we have I, we, Loch, Drich, and tatty. Can you guess what these might mean? I'll give you some clues. These are not the answers. We need to match them up. So these are the meanings, but they're not in the correct order. See if you can match them. I'll give you a second to try. So I, we, Loch, Drich, and tatty. You ready? Okay. So I means yes. We means little. Loch. Can you guess? Loch is a lake. Number 4, Drich. Drich is cold or miserable. If you think about the weather that we had earlier today, we could say that weather was Drich. And the last one is a potato. A tatty is a potato. So I, we, Loch, Drich, and tatty. Okay. Another fun thing to look at. Some food. Scotland has a rich culinary heritage. Lots of high quality produce coming from the land and from the sea. Lots of really good seafood in Scotland. But there are 4 foods here that are famous from Scotland. Can you guess what these might be? I'll show you. So the first one we have is porridge. It's not porridge like we have in Korea, it's oatmeal. And people in Scotland have eaten this for hundreds of years. It's nutritious, it keeps you full for a long time. Traditionally, we make it with oats, water, and salt, and we stir it over the fire. But today, people often add milk, people add honey or fruits to porridge, but it's very, very delicious, especially in winter time. It keeps you full, it keeps you warm. The second one. Number 2 is haggis. Haggis is Scotland's national dish, and it's quite a unique food. It's made from sheep's organs, so things like liver and heart and lungs, all of those mixed with oats, mixed with onions, mixed with spices, and it's cooked inside a sheep's stomach, which sounds delicious. Yeah, it sounds strange, but it's very, very good. We serve it with neeps, which are turnips, and with tatties, mashed potato. That's a traditional meal. And we eat it on Burns Night. Burns Night is in January, and it's a celebration of our national poet, Robert Burns. The third one here, this is Iron Brew. Iron Brew is a bright orange fizzy drink. It's known as Scotland's other national drink. It's got a very unique taste. It's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit fruity, it's got a bit of a bite to it, but we love it. And in Scotland, this outsells Coca-Cola. It's probably one of the only countries in the world where a different drink is the number one drink. The last one is tablet. Tablet is a traditional sweet. It's very, very sweet. It's a little bit like fudge, but it's got a rich texture, a crumbly texture as well, made from sugar and condensed milk and butter. It's very nice with a cup of tea. And if you have a sweet tooth, this is definitely a treat for you. So of these 4, which would you like to try? I know myself which one I would want. Maybe not the haggis. Okay, let's move on. So the word Halloween comes from a Scottish word, All Hallows Eve. And so that tradition that takes place in Scotland has been passed around the world. But Halloween these days is very different to its origins. Okay. This is the thistle, and the thistle is Scotland's national flower. And you'll see it everywhere, particularly in the Highlands and Islands. It's used by many businesses, many organisations have it as their logo. It's on the uniform of our national rugby team, and the police also use it. Okay. Yeah. It's been the emblem for a really long time, since the 13th century. Okay. So Scotland has an unusual national animal. And I wonder, can you guess what it might be? I'll let you have a little think. What is Scotland's national animal? I'll give you a clue. If you look at this picture, this magical creature, yeah, the unicorn is our national animal. A mythical creature as a national animal is quite an interesting thing. So we're one of the only countries, one of the few countries in the world that has a mythical creature as their national animal. In Wales, they have the dragon, for example, but in Scotland, it's the unicorn, and you will see the unicorn on many old buildings especially. Scotland is home to some amazing wildlife. So we have things like squirrels, deer, puffins, even dolphins. And there are two animals here that you might recognise. Let's see. Can't see anything there yet. Any guesses? What can you see? Okay. Right, it's a cow. It's actually called a Highland cow or Highland coo. An interesting animal with long hair, horns. You'll see these in the fields of many Scottish farms. Let's look at another one. So we have some clouds. It can't be a very tall animal because we can't see it. Something there. Maybe some legs. Maybe a tail. This one is a Shetland pony. The Shetland Islands are very, very far north. But the Shetland pony is a very small animal, but very strong. And here the islanders have knitted a jumper to keep it warm because I think it gets very windy and it gets very cold. Okay. I've saved the best for last. This is Loch Ness. Loch Ness is a very large and a very deep lake in Scotland, in the Scottish Highlands. If you look very closely at this picture, what can you see? Look very, very closely. Many people believe that there is a monster living in this loch. And the story goes back over hundreds of years. So hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people thought that they saw a beast going into the water, but there was no real evidence of that until about 100 years ago, a doctor took a photo. And the doctor took a photo of this. What does it look like? Maybe a monster? Maybe a dinosaur? Certainly looks like something coming out of the water. So people thought that this was a photo of a monster living in Loch Ness, but unfortunately it was proven to be a hoax in the 1990s. So although it looks like a monster, unfortunately it's not real evidence, but people still believe something is in the water. There have been lots of scientific investigations, checking for DNA, for example, but despite all these efforts, they haven't been able to find conclusive proof of a monster in Loch Ness. But if we look very, very carefully, perhaps we can see something. This monster here. Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, is one of the world's most enduring mysteries, and it brings many people to Scotland. There are many, many tourists who visit Scotland every year to look for this monster, the Loch Ness Monster. Whether it exists, not sure. Maybe one day we'll find out. What about you? Do you think that the Loch Ness Monster is real? So we've come to the end of our journey around Scotland, and I'll leave you with some pictures of Scotland in autumn. We're about to come into autumn just now, and these beautiful pictures here or what Scotland looks like or is starting to look like at this time of year. Okay.
네, 오늘 진행된 세션에서 궁금한 점이 있으셨다면 채팅을 통해 남겨주세요. 저희가 시간 관계상 몇 개의 질문만 제가 선정해 앤드류 선생님의 답변 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 몇 초 정도 기다려 보겠습니다. 네, 질문들을 써주시고 있는 것 같은데요. Okay, here's the question. When is the best time to visit Scotland? And how's the weather like in the period?
That's a very good question. In Scotland, we can get 4 seasons in one day. It can be sunny and then suddenly it rains. Sometimes it snows on the same day. I think the best time of year as a tourist is probably between May and September. That's likely when you're going to get the best weather. August is a really good time of year to go if you want to go to Edinburgh. Edinburgh has an international festival in August. It's super famous, but it's very, very expensive in August. December is a nice time as well. We have Hogmanay on the 31st of December. I prefer June and July. It's warmer. It's not as hot as Korea, but any time that you go, it will probably rain. It rains all the time. I think Scotland is very famous for rain.
Thank you
This
for your
dreich
answer.
weather.
Thank you for your answer. 질문을 한 가지 정도만 더 받아보도록 하겠습니다. So we're gonna have only one more question,
Okay.
maybe. Okay, the one who answered this, say thank you for the answer.
You're welcome.
And here's another question. How can we learn Gaelic?
There are lots of resources online. The BBC has its own Gaelic channel, BBC Alba.
Wow.
So I think on YouTube you can find many videos there. A really popular thing just now is Duolingo.
Oh.
So if you down Duolingo, it has Gaelic on
Wow.
there. So if you want to learn some basic Gaelic phrases. But there's lots of influencers, TikTokers, for example, who are putting the Gaelic language out there. So perhaps if people search, they can find someone to teach them Gaelic and then go on a trip to Scotland.
I see. Thank you for your answer,
You're
Andrew.
welcome.
네, 시간 관계상 저희 질의응답은 여기까지 해보도록 하겠습니다.
Good.
네, 오늘 함께 스코틀랜드의 역사, 언어, 문화, 장소, 상징적인 동물 등 여러 가지를 배워볼 수 있는 시간이었는데요. 여러분들에게도 유익한 시간이었길 바랍니다. 마지막으로 영국문화원에 대해 몇 가지 간단히만 소개해드리고자 합니다. 영국문화원의 행사, 다양한 문화체험 소식이 궁금하시다면 영국문화원 웹사이트 또는 SNS를 방문해주세요. 또한 다가올 10월에는 각 센터별로 초등학생 재원생 대상 리딩 챌린지 이벤트가 진행될 예정이니 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 그럼 이만 다음 11월 웨비나에서도 여러분 모두를 만나 뵙기를 바라며 이상 오늘 세션을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.